The article discusses the Supreme Court of India's 2017 decision affirming the fundamental right to privacy and the subsequent lack of impact on the interpretation of statutes, particularly Section 132 of the Income Tax Act. Despite the court's emphasis on individual rights, recent cases, like the raid on a lawyer, reveal prolonged detentions without warrants. The historical context highlights the evolution of search and seizure powers, but the article argues that post-2017 executive actions, especially in income tax searches, must adhere strictly to statutory law to prevent abuse of power and protect fundamental rights.
The article emphasizes the global need to prioritize access to blood and its products in building a resilient health architecture. Despite improvements, the World Health Organization reports disparities in blood collection, with Africa and low-middle-income nations facing shortages. India, while enhancing its blood management, still confronts significant shortages affecting healthcare services. The hub-and-spoke model, fostering public-private partnerships, is proposed to optimize blood distribution, especially in resource-constrained settings. The article also addresses myths hindering voluntary blood donation and calls for collaborative efforts between government and the private sector to enhance awareness and strengthen the global blood management ecosystem post-COVID-19.
The Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita's (BNS) provision treating hit-and-run accidents as aggravated offences is under scrutiny, causing concerns and strikes among truck drivers. Section 106 of the BNS, set to replace Section 304 of the IPC, proposes up to 5 years imprisonment for causing death due to rash or negligent acts, with potential fines. The provision also considers imprisonment up to 10 years for failure to report accidents promptly. While the strike raises questions about penal severity, authorities must balance increased jail terms with comprehensive accident prevention policies addressing imprisonment, compensation, and safety measures.
The Israeli Supreme Court has struck down a law passed by the Knesset, led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, aiming to limit the judiciary's powers. The legislation, part of a reform package by the right religious government, eliminated the reasonability doctrine used by judges to assess government decisions. The court, with a full panel of 15 judges, ruled 12-3 that it has the authority to rule over basic laws, and 8 judges, against 7 dissenters, voted to annul the law scrapping the reasonability standard. This decision hampers the government's attempt to shift the balance in favor of the right-wing dominated Knesset.
The International Monetary Fund, IMF, raised concerns about India's long-term debt sustainability and reclassified its exchange rate regime in the annual Article 4 consultation report. The IMF suggests India's government debt could reach 100% of GDP by fiscal 2028, emphasizing the need for prudent debt management. Global public debt has increased significantly, with developing countries, including India, facing challenges. India must manage public debt, enhance credit ratings, and address fiscal challenges, especially with potential fiscal slippage in the upcoming election year. IMF's worst-case scenarios highlight the importance of fiscal correction to avoid adverse outcomes.
Assam Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma believes a peace pact with a faction of the United Liberation Front of Assam, ULFA, can bridge the gap between Assamese and Bengali communities. The Protox faction of ULFA signed a tripartite peace deal, aiming to ensure legislative and land rights for Assamese people. The pact involves principles from the 2023 delimitation exercise and measures to prevent demographic changes. Critics argue the delimitation exercise was designed to reduce representation of Bengali-origin Muslims in the assembly. Sarma's approach aligns with the BJP's strategy to consolidate non-Muslim votes and polarize Bengali Muslims.
In the last 2 years, personal loans in India have surpassed industrial loans, with the share of personal loans reaching 33% of overall credit by 2023. Private banks are leading this surge, particularly in housing loans, which constitute 50% of all personal loans. The Reserve Bank of India, RBI, is closely monitoring the high growth of personal loans, especially housing loans, but RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das has stated that there is no stress in the housing and vehicle loan sector. Despite the rapid increase in housing loans, the gross non-performing assets (GNPA) ratio for housing loans remains the lowest among personal loan types.
The Protox faction of the United Liberation Front of Assam, ULFA, signed a tripartite peace deal with the centre and the Assam government on 29 December 2023. The ULFA, formed in 1979 during the Assam agitation, aimed to establish a sovereign Assam through armed struggle. The peace accord involves the ULFA renouncing violence, disarming, and participating in peaceful democratic processes. However, the anti-talks faction, led by Paresh Baru, continues to oppose the talks, operating from Myanmar. While the peace pact addresses the political demands of the ULFA, lasting peace may be elusive without Baru's participation.
To address the agrarian crisis and control migration, rural education in India should focus on effective vocational training and upskilling opportunities for youth. Farming remains the primary source of livelihood in rural areas, but there's a significant occupational shift with farmers moving to non-farming jobs. The current vocational education landscape lacks emphasis on skill development, hindering employment opportunities. To nurture a thriving generation, education should provide technical and life skills accessible through formal schooling, similar to initiatives by organizations like NEET Foundation and Pratham Institute. Infusing learning with rural life skills can make youth employment-ready in traditional and non-traditional trades.
The Arbinda Rajhova faction of the United Liberation Front of Assam, ULFA, signed a memorandum of settlement with the Union Home Ministry and the Assam government after 12 years of peace talks. The ULFA, formed in 1979 during the Assam agitation, initially sought sovereignty and an independent Assam. The recent peace accord addresses issues like protecting land rights for indigenous people and preventing illegal migration. While the peace deal offers hope, the Paresh Baru faction remains hostile. The insurgency's origins lie in opposition to exploitation, but various factors, including internationalization and military operations, weaken the movement over the years.
In 2024, several exciting space missions are set to take place. NASA's Europa clipper will explore Jupiter's moon Europa, investigating its icy shell, geology, and subsurface ocean to determine its potential as a habitat for extraterrestrial life. The Artemis II mission, part of NASA's plan to return humans to the moon, is scheduled for November 2024. The Viper rover will search for water near the moon's south pole, while Lunar Trailblazer and Prime 1 will map lunar water from orbit and drill into the moon's surface. Jaksha's MMX mission will study Mars moons, and ESA's Hera mission will explore the Didymos Dimorphos asteroid system, testing a planetary defense technique.